We are Cody and Christina, and for the past year and a half, we have been building out our Mercedes Sprinter van, the Desert Cruiser. Throughout the build process, we have traveled all over the place, exploring incredible locations and doing the things we look forward to the most. Finally, we are nearing the end of this project, which has been one of the most difficult but rewarding things we have ever done. Recently, we decided to show what it looked like during this incredible build process to hopefully shed some light on tips and tricks, as well as advice we wish we had before we started this journey. Welcome to part 1 of our van conversion.
What's up everyone? So today's van build video is going to be a little different than what some of you may be actually used to. We didn't film the beginning of our van build, so we're going to be doing some talking over, explaining our process, and then adding in some clips and pictures along the way. But you can head over to my Instagram and check out a full story that highlights everything that we did. So let's get into it. The first consideration that directly relates to our build was what length of van we wanted. And we chose the 170 and we would not change that.
Yeah, we were able to go grocery shopping, Walmart, everywhere that we needed to go, and he used it for his work.
Yeah, it was a daily driver for me the past year and a half. We've definitely not been limited by the length at all. We've turned around on dirt roads that we probably shouldn't have even been on in the first place, which brings us to, did we want four-wheel drive or did we not?
We decided to not get it, but we're really happy with our decision because we're able to go everywhere that we want.
Yeah, the van's actually really surprised us, and we've been in areas that we probably shouldn't have been. We recently had some all-terrain tires put on, and that has dramatically helped us as well.
The first thing that we did with our van was get our windows done. We didn't want to do it because we didn't think that we could. So we ended up getting 2 small windows in the back near our beds. We got a fixed window on the passenger side and a T-vent next to our kitchen.
The T-vent is perfect because it's right behind our galley and our fan's right above that, so that when we're cooking, air gets sucked straight up through the ceiling. We got the fixed window on the slider because we didn't want latches on there. We feel like from the door always opening and closing, we'd have problems. And then the bunk windows are awesome for sleeping at night because they're the exact same level with our bed. And they're all C.R. Lawrence windows, and they've all worked really, really nicely. The first thing that we did ourselves on the van is also probably the most controversial debated topic in all the van life community, and that's insulation. To keep it simple, we used 3M Thinsulate. We would not use anything else.
It was really easy to work with. We could cut any size that we needed. We used 3M 90 adhesive spray. You just put it on the insulation, put it on the wall, wait a few minutes, and just put it right on.
It's hydrophobic, does not absorb water. So that will not crinkle up. It will not have any mold growth on it, nothing like that. It's fireproof, so you can set that thing on fire and it's not going to have any issues with it. Also really boosted the sound performance in here, whether it be music or us just talking. On the freeways, we can actually hear our voices now because we put a lot of the Thinsulate above the headliner. And throughout the van, it just sounds a little bit better in here. And then obviously the insulating properties. It has done a really, really good job. On paper, you know, you can see polyiso, you could see all these other choices like wool, which I'm sure you guys are researching. I did. And they may have higher R values and all these different other measurements, but it's worked really well for us. We've been in the teens, we've been in over 100-degree weather, and it really holds the heat in here when it needs to, and it really keeps the cold out when it needs to as well.
So the first scary thing that we did in this van was cut a hole in our roof, and that's where we installed our MaxxFan.
Yeah.
When Cody told me he was going to do that, I kind of freaked out. I'm like, are you sure you want to jigsaw our ceiling? Like, it's a big deal. But I guess if we couldn't do that, then we couldn't do anything else in here.
Yeah, when we had the windows installed, the shop actually said they install MaxxFan, so we're like, oh, maybe that's a possibility. But after watching some videos, like, oh, maybe there's a chance. And
just YouTube videos.
I know, just videos. And we had never seen anyone do it in person. But we started kind of getting comfortable, and even though I felt comfortable, I wasn't sure if we were really going to do it, but I started ordering stuff anyway. And then the day came about a month and a half after I realized I wanted to do this. And my grandpa actually came over and helped us tremendously with confidence as well as using power tools.
Couldn't do it without him.
We couldn't do it without him. Like when we got our jigsaw the first time, we were like, this is scary. Like we don't even want to use that thing. You know, you just got to do your research. Using the proper tools, we had a template, a 14x14 template to cut the MaxxFan hole. It went in smoothly. We filed all the edges down. We painted everything up.
With Rust-Oleum?
With Rust-Oleum. You get the proper sealant. You drop the fan in. It's a really simple process, which we did highlight. But there's some excellent videos on how to do it out there.
The next thing that we did was remove the factory floor in this van. And we thought that it'd be really handy to keep for the rest of it.
And it was. We chose to lay down a subfloor consisting of 1x2s so that we can have a super strong sound floor in these super weighted areas, like where the couches or where the bed is. that's why it was handy to keep the factory floor. When we glued those 1x2s down, we put that floor down and we put a bunch of weight on it, and it evenly distributed weight throughout the entire van so that we got really good adhesion. But whenever you glue anything in here, make sure to buff the metal surface so that when you lay the adhesive, it has something to grab. Once we laid those 1x2s, we put insulation down there, because if we remember from our old van Pearl, after long drives on the highway, it would get super, super hot down there.
And our ice would just melt, so we weren't able to keep anything cool.
So we put an inch of polyiso insulation in there, which also gives it some rigidity down there.
It's very messy.
It was a super messy process, cutting all of it, and it was just spraying all over the place, but we think it really helped. And then on top of that, we again used the factory floor as a template and laid our 1/2-inch Baltic birch plywood down and just traced everything out. Cut it out with a mixture of circular saw and jigsaw, and then my awesome grandpa came over again, and we probably spent 3-4 hours sinking a full box of screws.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, when that floor was in, it was rock solid. And just to touch on the choice of plywood we use, we are recommended by contractor friends as well as van builder friends to use something that can hold up to the weather and the terrain that we're going to be going through. So we weren't going to use marine grade because it's very expensive, so the next best thing was Baltic birch. It has an exterior grade glue, so it'll hold up in the moisture conditions that are going to definitely be happening in here. And on top of that, it has an extra layer of, or an extra couple layers of plywood. So that basically means that when we're sinking our screws in, there's more thread that's happening, there's more grab that's going to be happening, which is a huge benefit for in a van, which is literally a home that's constantly having an 8.0 earthquake in here from driving down the road. Then to finish the floor, we ended up going to our local Home Depot, and there was a really, really cool guy. I wish I remembered his name, but he works in the Palm Springs store in the flooring area, and he helped us find a garage floor that looked like barn door wood. It was awesome, and that's what we chose. We've had it in here for probably a year now, and it's held up. We actually did glue it down, which is another worry for some people, and we've been in temperatures from teens to very, very hot, over 100 degrees. We've had no problems with it, no bubbling, and it looks great, and it's waterproof. So it's one consistent floor throughout the entire van, and we wouldn't do it any differently.
One of our favorite things that we did with our van was our ceiling.
And it came out way better than we ever could have imagined. Before we did it, we saw a lot of people saying, oh, don't do the tongue and groove on the ceilings. It's really, really complicated. But we actually had a really good experience doing it, and it was really, really fun. So for us to actually attach our cedar up to the ceiling, we decided to go the furring strip route. Reason for that is this is super thin wood, and if we were trying to use some solid screws and go into the ribs of the van, I feel like it wouldn't have come out as clean. So we actually secured 1x2s to the ribs of the van. There's a couple rows of screws throughout the entire van. And what that did for us was once those were secured, we had a really nice attachment point for the wood itself. So you can see this row of screws right here. That's actually signifying where our furring strips are. Now, our product itself, we got from Home Depot. It's Western cedar planks. They're 1/4 inch thick, so they're actually really thin and lightweight. And that really helped with bending and getting the curvature of the Sprinter van ceiling. Once we figured out what we wanted, we had no idea how to start it, but eventually we came up with the idea of starting from the center. If we started from the center and measured from both sides of the van wall, we can make sure that all the way along the run, it's the same exact measurement, which meant they were straight. And we slowly worked our way out. The only tricky thing that we really ran into on this side of the van was cutting to the curve above the slider door.
And basically all I did was use cardboard and cut the pieces until I got it right. It wasn't too hard.
But make sure you do it right, because that's the first piece of ceiling that you guys have as soon as you get in your van, so make it look good. The other only tricky spot that we ran into was in front of the fan here. This is the last rib up here. This is the last furring strip we have. So we were unsure because this ceiling here is basically floating because there's nothing to attach to. So with how thin our ceiling was, we were actually able to tuck it into the headliner, above the headliner. So the headliner is actually supporting our cedar planks, and it's giving it a really nice attachment point. Now the install actual process of our cedar. We glued everything as well as screwed it. We didn't go the nailing route because we wanted to have really strong, secure setup for holding these planks up. On top of that, we found some really cool gold screws that matched the ceiling. So all we did was we lined up each piece that we wanted. We put a couple beads of glue on each furring strip, and we literally just screwed them straight up.
So our walls were a little bit of a controversial topic. We weren't sure if we wanted to go the paneling route because we were a little worried that it was going to be really complicated to do. So we almost went the plywood route, but at the last minute we changed it. We went to Home Depot and we bought these I believe 7-inch wide shiplap pre-primed walls. So we knew we wanted white walls, so that worked out for us. We did add some layers of paint towards the end, and I'll explain why. But the install process, it was really, really simple. So we did the same thing as the ceiling. So you can kind of see there's a faint line right here, and those are actually screws. So those screws are attaching to wood furring strips. We have 5 sections of furring strips along the wall. And what we did was, along each point of the furring strip, we literally just glued the wall paneling up. So we put beads of glue on the furring strips, and then we screwed it straight in. We used 2 different types of screws. So we actually have 2 rows of exposed screws, so we used some nice cabinet screws. And then we have 3 sections that we actually wood filled. So if you look here, you cannot see any screws. So what we did was, we took some normal flat head screws and we countersunk them. What we did after that was we literally just wood filled it, and then we sanded the wood fill down, painted over it, and it completely hid the screws. So we have 2 exposed sections of screws, and then we have 3 rows that are completely hidden. You know, we had to make some cuts around the windows. That's just a matter of measuring, you know, on either end where you want the windows to fit. And then we just built some simple window trims around it. So let me show you that really quick. Alrighty. So you can see underneath that it's completely filled in with plywood all around. It's just 1/4 inch. And then we did have a gap between the underside here and the wall. So we just threw, again, some 1/4 inch plywood right over it, and we dyed it to match our cabinets, and it came out looking super, super clean. We're happy with it. So right here is my favorite portion of the van, our garage. And that's why we wanted to get the longer wheelbase van, so we could have all of our gear in here. And this little contraption right here is probably my favorite thing that we built for the entire van. That's our bike slider, so check this out. It's on some super heavy duty locking extension drawer slides, and it pulls our bikes out, probably about 90 pounds altogether, no problem. The platform itself is 1/2 inch ply. You can use 3/4 inch if you want. And then the sides to hold the actual extension portion of the slide are 3/4 inch. And then you can see that we through bolted everything just to attach this in really nicely, but you can screw it. And then to make sure that this entire thing doesn't go flying forward and fall down, we have a super strong piece of 3/4 inch here that is actually pocket screwed in a bunch of locations into the van floor. And this is what's holding the rear end of the slide. So like I said, when you pull it out, it's not going to go forward at all. And that's also through bolted in a bunch of locations. But we've had 0 problems with this slide with how we set it up, and we would not change a single thing. So welcome to the underside of our bed. I'm showing this because I want to show you guys how we set up our bed platform. So before we could set our bed platform up, we had to figure out how high our bikes were going to be. So once we figured out how high our bikes were going to be, we knew where we can put these 2x4s here. So once we had the height set up, we rib nutted in a bunch of locations this 2x4 straight into the van wall. So this thing is super strong. You could pull on it with all your might. It's not going anywhere. And then here, there's 4 of them in total. We have some 2x4s, and those are the cross members that go straight across for our bed platform. And then the bed platform itself is made out of 1/2 inch plywood. And then you can see all the little holes. Those are all just ventilation holes so that our mattress does never get any fungus or anything funky like that. So now you've seen the underside, let's go check out the front bed face itself. So to complete our bed, we actually used a 1/2 inch piece of plywood. It was a little tricky setting it up though, because of course the walls in the sprinters are curved. So we used cardboard template after cardboard template to make sure we got that curve right so that it sat against the wall nicely, and we used some scrap wood until we were happy. Once we got it dialed, we had to make one more final cut, and that was for our little bed cabinet here. That was super simple. We just traced it out. We used a jigsaw and a circular saw. We added a nice trim piece here to match our cabinets, and that's actually covering up. We have a 2x2 right here. What this is doing is this is just holding our mattress in so that if we ever hit the brakes hard, it can't fly forward, and it looks really, really nice. So when we built our couches, we wanted to keep them as simple as possible, and we wanted one big one for storage and the other for our toilet. So this is our big one for storage. It holds a lot of gear. So you can see now that we have a gas strut arm here and on the other side to hold it open. And then we have 3 flush Blum hinges that are soft closed. They're super, super nice. But to build the box, all we did was we built the front, we built the back, and then we put the side pieces inside, smushed it together, and then we actually wanted to not see screws on it, so we wood filled everything and painted over it. All of the storage in here is absolutely massive. You could throw backpacks in here, do whatever you want. And then we do have a cushion that was made for this. And then on this side of the van, same thing. We have our toilet couch. So Christina actually came up with a really cool idea. Our Nature's Head toilet's very tall, so when we sat on here, it wasn't comfortable. So we actually cut out a piece of wood, which we then attach to the lid. So this way when we sit on the toilet, there's nothing in our way, and this is also on a gas strut arm, and you can see our 2 hinges back there. This was probably the trickiest part of the build, was getting our overhead cabinet super dialed. There's a bunch of different methods people used, but the first thing we did was template the sides. So I'm going to open up our now finished overhead cabinet. These ends are extremely tricky to make because the back is curved and the ceiling is curved. So you can see we have one here, and then we have one here, and then there's another one. That's all just one cabinet. So you got to get these really right, because if they don't fit against the wall nicely, they're going to look kind of off, and you also don't want them to be unleveled on the bottom. But once you get the side pieces dialed, we use cardboard, then we use scrap wood. Make your bottom pieces and your top pieces to whatever length you need. For us, we actually just screwed straight through the bottom, and we wood filled everything, and same for the top. And then to hang everything from the walls, you could see these backer strips. We did 2 per cabinet, and they are nailed, glued, and screwed into the sides of each end. And then we drilled holes into the metal of the van wall through the wood and everything, and that's what these screws attach to. And we have about 6 of those monster screws per cabinet, holding everything in there really tightly. Then to finish everything off, as you can see, it's fully self-supported. We have 1 gas strut arm on here, and then we have 2 hinges per cabinet. And then to keep everything locked while we're driving, you can see the magnetic catches. They're 40-pounders. They are very solid. We've had stuff fly against the door and it does not open. And to finish it, we have some really cool leather latches. We didn't want anything sharp and pokey in the van, and it takes some strength to open them up. Boom. So our back doors were surprisingly not overly tricky to make. We didn't know how we wanted to template them because there's so many different curves. But Christina and I came up with the method of going to one of our local craft stores, and we used wrapping paper. Long enough to cover the entire thing from top to bottom and wide enough. And we taped it on, and we literally traced all around the outskirts until we had our line. And then we took it off, we put it on a solid piece of wood, we cut it out, and then we literally drew a line onto the wood, which we then jigsawed to give us this piece. So we did that for both of our back doors. Making all the little cuts was kind of tricky. It was a guessing game. Ours did not come out perfect. We did this because we did not want to see this just left bare. And then the other really cool thing, this color here was made from dyeing all of our Baltic birch plywood. Birch does not stain well because stain sits on the surface, whereas dye soaks into the wood itself. So you could see all of the grain is really brought out when you dye because it's seeping through all of the layers. So for us to dye this, you have to do 3 coats of the dye. We use a General Finishes product. And then on top of that, we had to do 3 coats of clear coat. And we did that for all of our cabinet doors, everything that you see inside of the van. But take your time and it will really come out awesome. If you have any questions about our build or anything that we missed, please let us know in the comments below. And stay tuned for next week's build episode, which is up to date, where we will actually be doing stuff in front of you guys. Until then, peace!